Jane Elliott, an American educator and diversity trainer, is known for her work on the Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes exercise, which aims to teach about racism and discrimination. While Elliott's approach may be provocative and controversial to some, it's important to note that her statements should be understood in the context of her specific teachings and experiences. Elliott's assertion that Caucasian individuals who have gone through the American education system are inherently racist is rooted in the idea that systemic racism is deeply ingrained in American society. She argues that individuals, regardless of their personal beliefs or intentions, are influenced by a system that perpetuates racial biases and inequalities. According to Elliott, even well-meaning individuals can inadvertently contribute to racism through their actions, thoughts, and societal conditioning. It is worth mentioning that the concept of systemic racism refers to patterns of discrimination and inequality that are deeply embedded within social, economic, and political structures, rather than solely relying on individual attitudes or beliefs. Systemic racism operates on a broader level and affects various aspects of society, including education, employment, criminal justice, and housing, among others. However, it's essential to approach this topic with nuance and recognize that not all individuals who have gone through the American education system are intentionally or consciously racist. Racism is a complex issue influenced by numerous factors, including personal upbringing, exposure to diverse perspectives, individual choices, and ongoing self-reflection. Promoting understanding, empathy, and education about racism is crucial for addressing systemic inequalities. It is essential to engage in open and respectful dialogue, actively challenge biases, and strive to create inclusive and equitable environments. By acknowledging and confronting the historical and ongoing impact of racism, individuals can work towards fostering a more just and equal society. It's important to clarify that the term, white supremacy myth, is not a widely recognized or accepted term within the academic or scholarly discourse on race and racism. However, it's possible that you are referring to a misconception or a distorted belief about white supremacy. White supremacy is a belief system and ideology that asserts the inherent superiority of white people over other racial or ethnic groups. It promotes the idea that white people should have dominant social, political, and economic power, and that other races should be subjugated or marginalized. White supremacy has been historically manifested through practices such as colonialism, slavery, segregation, and racial discrimination. It is crucial to note that white supremacy is not a myth but a real and significant force that has shaped societies and continues to influence power structures today. The impact of white supremacy is evident in systemic racial inequalities, disparities in access to resources and opportunities, and the persistence of racial discrimination and violence. It's also worth mentioning that there are various manifestations of white supremacy, ranging from explicit and overt acts of racial violence to more subtle forms of systemic racism and implicit biases. Recognizing and addressing white supremacy requires ongoing efforts to dismantle racist systems, challenge prejudiced beliefs, and work towards creating a more equitable and inclusive society. In summary, white supremacy is a real and historically rooted ideology that promotes the dominance and superiority of white people over other racial or ethnic groups. It is not a myth, but a significant and persistent issue that continues to shape social dynamics and perpetuate racial inequalities. One of the most pervasive myths about race in America is the concept of biological or genetic racial superiority or inferiority. This myth suggests that certain races are inherently superior or inferior to others based on biological or genetic traits. This belief has been used to justify racial hierarchies, discrimination, and oppression throughout history. However, it is important to note that race is not a scientifically valid concept in biological terms. Genetic studies have consistently shown that there is more genetic variation within racial groups than between them. Human genetic variation is a continuous and overlapping spectrum, and there is no clear genetic boundary that separates one race from another. Race is a social construct that has been shaped by historical, political, and social factors. It is a product of social and cultural categorization, rather than a fixed and objective biological reality. The physical characteristics typically associated with race, such as skin color or facial features, are the result of complex genetic traits influenced by evolutionary processes and environmental factors. The myth of race as a determinant of superiority or inferiority has been used to justify slavery, colonization, segregation, and various forms of racial discrimination and oppression. It perpetuates harmful stereotypes, fosters prejudice, and hinders efforts to achieve racial justice and equality. Challenging this myth requires recognizing that race is a social construct and understanding that differences among individuals and groups should be embraced and celebrated, rather than used as a basis for discrimination or hierarchy. It involves promoting inclusivity, valuing diversity, and working towards dismantling systemic racism and inequalities based on race.